the Writing Community Chat Show Advent Christmas Calendar.
So she went out to work as a civil servant, and I sat at home trying to write novels. And for the first 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 books, I was doing no business at all. I was just clinging on. I was always about to get dropped by my publisher, and I went through different publishers because they did drop me. But eventually I just thought, no, I'm just going to, this is what I want to do. I want to write about this guy, Rebus. I want to write about Scotland. I want to write crime fiction. I'm just going to keep going, and I'm going to get better. I'm going to get better. And I'm going to try to write books that people are going to want to read in quantity. And eventually it clicked, but it was a long time coming.
Was it? I mean, sorry, Chris, I was going to say I've listened to Luca Vesti and Steve Kavanagh's podcast, and they talk about you as being this author who managed to break away from that middle ground to being the mid-list to being a bestseller. And I just wondered, in terms of your mindset, you've touched on it a little bit, but how did you approach each novel after that then? Because obviously you're trying to improve every time. You're getting sort of setbacks in the way that it's not selling as you would hope it to. How do you sort of overcome that and then get to that point where you make that big break?
There's a lot of punching the wall. There's a lot of going out in the car at midnight and driving around screaming. I did those things. There's a lot of reading other people and thinking, how did you do that? How did you make me keep reading? How did you make that horrible character sympathetic? How did you make that twist work? What are the mechanics of it? So you read and you read and you read and you keep writing and you chuck stuff away and you keep honing it. And eventually you find your own voice. And if you're lucky, and luck is always involved in this.
Yeah.
You find that you're writing the kind of book that people do want to read. I was asked years ago, a bunch of famous writers were asked by The Guardian, give us your top 10 tips. It's still online. If you go to The Guardian website and just put my name in, you'll find a bunch of these, dozens of them from different writers all around the world. And my first one was get lucky. Number 1 was get lucky. Number 10 was stay lucky. There is a lot of luck involved in this, in writing. I mean, it's persistence. I mean, I think I'm proof of that. You've got to be persistent. You've got to be, in Scots, we've got a great word, thrawn, THRAWN, stubborn. I'm just not going to give up. You don't like me? Screw you. I'm going to keep going. You will like me. I'll make you like me. I'm going to write a book that you will like. So there's a lot of that. And just, the book's getting better. And the more crime fiction I wrote, the more confident I grew, and the more confident I grew, the more I did. So the books became bigger, more complex, more multi-layered. The themes became bigger. I took Rebus out of Edinburgh to further afield in Scotland. The breakthrough book, Black and Blue, which was a breakthrough because it won the Gold Dagger Award, and that got readers more interested in me. That was around about 97, I think. That was it 97? Was it before? Anyway, doesn't matter. That was the big book. It was just it was a book written out of desperation. My wife and I had moved to France. We were living in rural France. Suddenly she wasn't working as a civil servant anymore. I was the only person with an income. If the books didn't sell, we starved.
Wow.
And at the same time, kids came along. Suddenly we had 2 kids. So I'm panicking. I'm going, if I don't write a book that's going to sell, my publisher's thinking of dumping me. What do we do? We're in a country that I don't really understand. Being a working class Scot, my French is mal. And I can order a beer, that's about it. And beer, s'il vous plaît. But, I've got to write a book that's going to sell.
Yeah. And
I didn't look at the market. I just thought this has got to be a good book. This has got to be better than a good book. This has got to be a great book. And that was Black and Blue. And there was a lot of anger, a lot of frustration in it. And I can see it when I read it. I can see just bubbling beneath the surface is a young man I was young, I was in my 30s, a young man in despair.
Do you think that the sort of pressure and I guess like the despair you felt at that time, like you said, you could see it in the work. Do you think other people pick up that's in the work? Does it have a good effect on the book?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the stuff that's in a story when you write it that you don't know is in that story, and you almost need the reader to tell you what that is about. A friend of mine, not that long ago, I'm trying to think which book it was. It might have been Rather Be the Devil, a fairly recent Rebus novel. Old friend of mine, school friend. He read it and he said, "Do you know what this book's about, Ian?" I said, "What?" He said, "It's about your sons leaving home, growing up and leaving home." And when I went back and looked at it, it's all these surrogate fathers and surrogate sons all the way through that book. And I just thought, that absolutely right. It's me saying to myself subconsciously, what kind of dad was I? Could I have done things differently? Was I a good dad? None of my kids had grown up and left home. But that was so far beneath the surface. That was my subconscious working that I wasn't aware of it. And that's why a good critic is useful to an author, because a good critic will find stuff you didn't know was in there.